Hi, so today what I want to talk about is the melodic minor modes that I didn't cover in my first session, which was mainly focusing on the ones that we use for dominant chords. So I covered three of the kind of most commonly used ones in that one, and I just want to go over how we can use the other four that I didn't mention and what they can kind of be useful for. A couple of these are more useful than others. A couple of them are kind of not useful at all, at least until we get to quite a far away, maybe quite modern stage. But it's good to know about them, and if you're kind of at a loose end for what to practice, these can be nice things to just kind of get used to and to kind of enjoy if you like the more darker, kind of fresher, contemporary sounds in jazz. So I covered modes 4, 5 and 7 in the first class, and obviously the key one to start with today would be mode 1. No prizes for guessing that was the one I was going to start with. And that obviously is literally just the melodic minor mode. So this mode is very nice for, there's a couple of things that are good for this to use. Let's say you're playing on a long minor vamp, or maybe even like a minor blues or something. I'll use it in the context of a minor blues. So when you're playing just Dorian on all these minor chords that you get, sort of static ones, not ones that you get in 2/5-1s, but long stretches of minor chords, just Dorian can get a little bit boring and it sounds a little bit vanilla. Whereas if we stick in our melodic minor scale, we get something actually that is very interesting. So here's I'll do one chorus of blues. I don't know why I did two there. One chorus of blues, just using the Dorian scale, and then I'll do one chorus of minor blues, but using the minor major thing, and you'll get the idea of how different it is. Listen out for the major seventh. That gives it that significant like clash against a minor chord. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. So you get the idea. You wouldn't want to do it the whole time because people would think you're a bit crazy wanting all that dissonance. But it's a really nice flavour to have to be able to sort of whip out when like a minor chord or something is starting to get a bit dull. Okay, so let's move on to our second mode. This is the Dorian flat 2 scale. Now, quick side note. A really good way to kind of get used to all these sounds, actually, and you can't do it for some reason. You can do this on this scale, but it doesn't sound good when you do it on the major modes. But if you just take your standard C minor major voicing, which would just be C, E flat, G, B, and by the way, I'd recommend everyone do this, not just piano players. So C, E flat, G, B. Let's just put it here. It's just an inversion, just to make it in a slightly clearer place in the piano. And if we put all the different notes under it, we get all the different tones of the modes, if that makes sense. So if I do, it's a good way to get your ears used to the kind of whole framework of the thing. Why I mentioned that will kind of become relevant in a second. So our Dorian flat 2 scale is actually, there's not a huge amount of use for this scale. I'd say out of all the scales, this is the one I come across the least and I need to use the least. It's sort of a little bit dull in a way. But what it can be very good for, and this is kind of a piano specific thing, but you can also use it if you're a horn player or guitar player looking for more interesting lines. But what you can use it for is it's very helpful as like an alternative to a 5 in a 2/5-1. Let's just focus on the 5/1 for now. But say for a 2/5, let's say we're going to G minor and we want to use the Dorian flat 2 voicing, so that would just be our C minor major voicing with a D on the bass. We can use that to go to G minor in quite a dramatic kind of fashion. So here's the 2, A minor, and then here's the Dorian flat 2, and then G minor. And I'll just do it again. So that can be quite nice. So it's like if you want to get into more advanced 5/1s, that's a nice kind of flavour to use. So now we move on to mode number 3. Again, this one is not very common at all, but I'm actually a fan of this one. I use this one quite a lot. And this is the Lydian augmented. And we wouldn't really, it's kind of one of the only chords we can actually kind of use that's almost like a substitution for our major chord. So we've got, that would be our Lydian augmented chord if we build it up kind of traditionally in thirds. And what that can be quite helpful for, say we've got a 2-5-1 finishing on an E flat, we can kind of delay going to the E flat major 7, this sort of home chord, by putting this chord in, and it can sound quite interesting. So here's a sort of just some voicings for a 2-5-1. So 2 and 5, and then the augmented. Just do that once more. Something just to change it up a bit. And you can use it in lines as well. Let's do a bar of the 2 minor, a bar of the 5, a bar of the sharp 5, the Lydian augmented, sorry, and a bar of the major 7. So I'll do it again. So it's quite a nice, interesting sound in that kind of way. You're very rarely going to actually see it written, but it's a cool substitution if what you're kind of looking for is cool substitutions. So let's move on to the last one that we didn't cover last time. And this one actually is a pretty helpful one. This one people generally kind of use a lot as a substitution for a particular chord, almost more than they use the actual scale for this particular chord. So this is an important one to kind of know about. And that's the 6th mode, and this is what we call the Locrian sharp 2. And it kind of is what it says in the tin. It's just the Locrian mode, which would normally be this, but with a sharp 2, a little bit brighter. Now, the Locrian scale is the scale that we kind of most closely affiliate with a minor 7 flat 5. If we go up the C major scale, for example, and the only time that the minor 7 flat 5 pops up in the major scale is on the 7th mode, which in major is our Locrian mode. So that would be. But that's kind of an ugly sound. I think most jazz musicians would agree that it's not that great, whereas this, using our Locrian sharp 2, it's stronger, it's nicer, it's got a nicer character to it. It's kind of hard to describe, it's just a bit brighter and it's a bit less like, oh, and it's a bit more like, kind of interesting. Minor in jazz usually doesn't actually mean sad, it more means sort of like a bit more broody, a bit more like, rather than sort of crying over, crying over a lost lover, it's more like sitting in a bar, having a drink, reminiscing about times gone by or whatever. So it's nice to have something that's a little bit more bright. So let me demonstrate that for you. I'm going to play a minor 2-5-1 kind of slowly, once with the minor 7 flat 5 using the normal Locrian, and then once with the Locrian sharp 2, and you should notice actually quite a big difference. So here it is with just normal Locrian. And now here it is with Locrian sharp 2. It's much nicer, and it kind of leads on actually to the next chord in a much better way, especially if we're using altered, which you can learn more about in the first session obviously. If we're using altered for the next chord, those two different melodic minor scales go together really, really nicely. So let's say we take our minor 7 flat 5, and then we've got our D7 altered, which we then go to G minor. And let's make that a minor major 7 just for fun. So A minor 7, that would be, if we're using the Locrian sharp 2, that would be from the C melodic minor. And then if we're doing our D7 altered, that would be from the E flat melodic minor. And then obviously the G minor is just G melodic minor. So if I make up lines based on these different melodic minor scales, this is going very fast, but look at the worksheet if you're feeling a bit confused. But if I use those 3 melodic minor things, it should sound really nice. So, like so. So there you go. That's kind of like a little insight at the end as well into how melodic minors can be so useful. I didn't actually plan that, but it kind of just came out. But that's kind of how they can be so helpful in our kind of day-to-day changes playing. But that's an insight into the other melodic minor scales and what they can kind of be very helpful for. In the last video, part 3 of melodic minor stuff, I'll talk a little bit about how we can kind of practice and play fluently over such a kind of like such an awkward sounding scale with kind of shapes and patterns and stuff. And hopefully that can help inform major scale playing as well. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Again, any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Happy to help. Happy practicing. Cheers.